continue this morning our journey through creation. We've been on this topic now for 3 weeks. We get 5 weeks of this. Remember how excited I was? And once again, this topic of creation at risk was real easy to prepare for this morning. Over the past few weeks, we have opened our hearts to the reality of a broken world that we all live in. Whether it had been the rainforests in South America being burned down and politics getting involved in all sorts of issues dealing with the environment. I mean, they had a huge walkout. This was kind of cool. I told my son, he's a teenager, and I've got another teenager somewhere. Where is he? Where'd he go? Back there. I don't know if you've heard this, and I'm not getting political. This is not politics. Please know that. But something's amazing happening out of a young generation that I think all the people in this room ought to hear. It started a year and a half ago with a 16-year-old girl in Sweden who got really upset as she learned the science behind what's happening to the environment. And she got so upset that she and her little town did a big march outside her city hall, whatever they call that in Sweden. I don't know what they call it, but whatever, her parliamentary building. And it launched a movement. This movement now had, and we Googled it, millions of teenagers. And we say teenagers up through their early 20s now, because some college students are involved. But New York City schools, I believe it was Washington State schools, New York City schools is the largest school district in the United States, by the way, excused the absences for kids to participate in this. And it was a march for Earth, for responsibly taking care of our resources and our planet. Now, some people, I talk to adults who get upset and go, oh, this is so silly. It isn't silly. It's called passion and love for their natural world. And they did it in a good way. And again, take the politics out of it, but think about when do we, as a body, do something globally for anything these days that's positive, for positive change. So creation at risk, I wanted to share something good because, every Sunday it's been all about horrific things. And to be honest, my heart's been aching for the folks in Texas this week. Did any of you hear about that? Oh my goodness, they had no time to prepare. There's a town got 40 inches of rain in a matter of 2 days. They had no warning. This thing was a little tiny tropical depression turned tropical storm the day it made landfall. So what the alert was, stay home, don't go out on the streets. The world is broken. There's plenty of reasons why our world today kind of compares a little bit with the world of Jeremiah. And as I could almost push y'all, but I've been calling Jeremiah a prophet of something else for weeks. What'd you learn about Jeremiah? What's he a prophet of? Doom, there it is. Doom and gloom, buddy. Week after week, we've been hearing some pretty rough scriptures of what was going on in Jeremiah's day and how God was using this prophet to warn everyone, you need to turn back to God. Well, this morning's message that was read by Becky, we hear a different side of Jeremiah and a really, really close connection with God. You can almost bounce back and forth in the words if you go back and read this and hear the weeping of God alongside Jeremiah. There was sadness showed not just by Jeremiah for God's people, but God for God's people. This was a very saddening scripture this morning if you were hearing it. It's about the judgment, but it's also more about the sorrow. When we let our God down and we turn our back, he weeps. He's saddened. It's almost like the words of the Lord and Jeremiah mingled together for just long enough to hear the humanity of God coming out through Jeremiah. The compassion. And I hope that this morning the one big takeaway from Jeremiah is through Jeremiah we hear just how much God loves us. Remember how I talked about how he's pursuing us? He never leaves us. Even though we turn away over and over and over again, he's always pursuing us. And this morning, there's tears. Because the judgment will come. There's nothing that can stop that. And the only thing that can bring us back is us. So this morning, as we turn to the parable of the dishonest steward, this New Testament lesson, once again, was not difficult to think about the connection between then and now. And I'll start globally. My goodness, I don't understand trade wars and all these things I hear about on the news, but I hear these things of, well, somebody's stealing this trade secret and this trade secret. There's a whole lot of dishonest something going on. I get that much. I'm not a big political analyst. I'm not an economist. But I'm hearing there's a lot of crooked people out there causing you and me a lot of headaches. That being said, it's not surprising that Jesus has used parables about money more than once. In fact, it was funny for those of you here, my first Sunday, I had to talk about money. And I was like, oh gosh, I hope y'all come back, because it's not something we feel comfortable talking about. As we think about it, I do some marriage counseling. One of the things you got to do with a young couple is talk about money. How you're going to get it. How you're going to manage it. How are you going to tell each other no when you need to be told no? Who's going to be the one in charge? Are you going to share that responsibility? What does it mean to be a good steward? And then how are you going to deal with it when no matter what you do, there's not enough? So Jesus talks about this through Luke, and Luke is interesting. When he talks, he has these characters that are more than one-dimensional, where it's a storytelling thing. See, Luke, he creates this character who has a moment where he's even talking to himself. Oh boy, I'm about to get fired. What do I do now? It's one of those characteristics of Luke. He's really a great writer and really helps us understand the inner workings of our dishonest steward this morning, which is kind of cool. Because not only do we get to experience this relationship with the boss man and the manager with his people, we have the relationship of the inner self, of that decision he's going to face now that he's busted. And it's quite contemporary. Again, since I'm thinking about the news and all these things going on that I hear about, and this goes way back. I can date myself with the young people, but Coke is it was a big slogan. Remember, Coke is it, the biggest taste? Oh, look at y'all nodding. You know this. Well, there were the Cola Wars. Do you remember that? They had a war over cola, and they had blind taste tests. So trade secrets is nothing new. You might not know this, but I have a couple people I could call out. I've got people here today who work for the orthopedic industry. And there's like Zimmer and Biomed and all these Othies and all these different companies. If you work for one, you have to sign a disclosure that you will never reveal the secrets of that company to anyone else. Even Wildman Uniform Company, your dad, had to sign a thing that he cannot go work for Cintas and share with them what they do at Wildman Business Group. Cintas is a uniform company with mats and rugs and uniforms, and Wildman's a competitor. You're thinking, it even goes that far? Yes. So this idea of dishonesty, I'm guessing, is very contemporary. Because it appears every industry has to safeguard against the dishonest employee, let alone steward. The corruption can get bad. I mean, we had a huge property, they blame it on the housing market. But what it really was it a bunch of rich bankers or something lining their pockets, deceiving us all, playing with interest rates, throwing money at people, saying spend, 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 and then oops, I guess we're going to have to bail out everybody because we're all broke. We're talking a nation. So what does this steward do in the parable? Well, he does his best to figure out a way to cover himself before he's fired. Now, to answer the question about this shrewdness, because we're going to go from the dishonest to shrewd, is this parable is almost like a bridge between stories. There was a prodigal son, and there was a rich man, and there was Lazarus. And in the prodigal story, the preceding story, dishonest manager squandered what was entrusted to him. And like the story that follows, this parable begins with the same words: there was a rich man. And the prodigal son, of course, he comes back and, he'd squandered wealth, and that's not the focus. But this guy that we're hearing about this morning, he's not saying sorry, is he? He's just figuring out a way to make sure his life's going to be okay, and he's not going to be having to do manual labor. He's not going to have to beg. He's going to have friends. He's making friends through lowering debts, doing a little favor here and there. And in Luke, this reversal of status is at the heart of what happens when Jesus and the kingdom appear. So there's something that Jesus is trying to get us to see that's freely given that we don't have to figure out. We don't have to deceive. We can be in the worst situation ever, in sin, maybe financial debt, maybe in relationships. No matter what that problem we get into, we're not going to have to be that dishonest steward to weasel our way out. Jesus is the light and the way. And it said the proud will be scattered, which means squandered also. The powerful are brought down and the lowly lifted. The hungry will be filled and the rich sent away. Those are promises. So Jesus is trying to talk here this day to these folks to tell them, this is what you would do, meaning mankind. And we see it, very prevalent everywhere. But Jesus is also saying, you don't have to be. So what does it mean to be shrewd? And I'm not going to give you the answer this morning on why this dishonest guy is called shrewd. That's for you to decide. Because, of course, this commendation could just be ironic, calling him shrewd and wise. That's pretty good, bud, meaning ironic. Or maybe there's more to it. Some people have suggested that maybe the employer is just simply commending this manager for handling a difficult situation well. Even though it was wrong, it was a pretty smart idea. That's for you to decide. Shrewd can also mean wise. But regardless of where your heart leads you this morning, Jesus brings up children of light. And oftentimes I'm not sure you understand that's what you are as a disciple of Christ. You're children of light. And he begins talking about 4 different ways that we can use this story to remain children of light in our lives and not become this dishonest or shrewd person that we could be tempted to become. So first, as children of light of this age grow more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the children of light would be. We should be different. If we were faced with the same situation, we should know better. In other words, Jesus' disciples, who are the children of light, you and me, better take caution. Or we might just learn, meaning pick up, what it is these folks are doing from the children of this age. I share that because even the kindest, nicest, noblest, most honest person ever put in a bad situation may make the wrong choice. If you don't believe that, you haven't lived long enough yet. Are you living a life as a child of light? Well, second, you may be wealthy through being dishonest, but you will not be really happy. That is one people would argue with, I'm sure. Because the children of this age, this is what they live for. I'm going to get to the top. I'm going to make the most. I'm going to have the biggest house, the nicest boat, the whatever it is they lust after. And I'm going to go see the world, and I'm going to eat at the nicest restaurants, and I'm going to want for nothing. And I won't stop till I get there. And I don't care who I hurt along the way, because if you remember the message from last week, what does it matter anyway? They're a hopeless person. It's all about now. It's all about me. That's the age, isn't it? There's so many lost and broken. It is literally all about stuff. And I see some young people shaking their heads because they start learning it by, I don't know, first, second grade, the haves and the have-nots. They got to have the right shoes, the right outfit. Their parents don't make enough money. I won't have you to my house because I'm embarrassed by my house. I'll go to their house. Their house is better. Young people get it. They totally get it. As we grow, sometimes the reason we are strayed and we are seeking this wealth in any way we can get it is because we're trying to be better than what we are. Because the world says you got to have it all. It's about stuff, isn't it? Oh, come on. I mean, look at me. I'm wearing a shirt from Walmart. Shame on me. What was I thinking? And I'm at a yard sale. And I shop always. Oh my goodness, it's humiliating, isn't it? I don't mean to be satirical here, but that's the truth. If my husband was in here right now, he would chuckle because I finally got a new car. It's a lease and it gets 40 miles to a gallon. But I finally did it because was it over 200,000, my Ford Explorer? It was a lot. And it was falling apart. It had rusted holes in the roof, so there was water seeping in. And it broke. And I promised him we wouldn't fix it anymore. And bless his heart, our mechanic said, it's time to let it go, Deanna. But okay. But I'll tell you what, there would be people embarrassed to drive around that vehicle. I guarantee it. Because that did not look like a pretty vehicle. It was my baby. But it wasn't a pretty vehicle. And to be honest, I rationalized, okay, it's costing me $100 a week in fuel. It's chugging the gallons. I gotta do something. So it had me, to say switch cars. But you see, it's the stuff. I go to the right church. Right? Gotta go to the right church. Gotta have the right friends. Got to put on the right persona. We got to be what the world tells us to be. And by golly, this story, folks, as he was cutting down bills for people, it was in hopes of getting something in return called friendship. To be welcomed into their homes. To be able to walk away from that job going, remember what I did for you? Can I come over for supper tonight? People today, I'm sorry, there's a lot still like it. There are people that probably wouldn't invite you or me to their house because they have nothing to gain from us. Very shallow friendships. The Filipino concept of utang na loob, which literally means inner debt or debt of inner gratitude. You ever heard that I'm indebted to you? I hope this morning you walk away realize our second thing we're learning is you're not indebted to anyone. Jesus took care of that. So here's one we've seen. God will always provide. It's just might look different than what we had in mind. Very little, very much. Do we borrow much? Do we hang in the right crowd? And to be honest, I don't even mind throwing myself out there this morning to say, God always does provide, but it's not what you expect. Because what you folks don't know, and very few of you will know, my husband and I, got married back in 1993, a couple of kids starting out. We had this amazing life going on. We had money. We had trips. We had a place at Jellystone Park. In fact, we had two places. We had a park model with the extra lot. And when you know it, in a blink of an eye, bam, it all went away. See, my husband got sick back in 2010. He collapsed at a football game, tailgating at good old West Snowball. And I was sitting at him that night. I was thinking, you whip, suck it up, it's the flu. Come on, I didn't even want to be there. I feel so bad. But I really was kind of thinking, oh, really? You know, we women get sick and you just got to go, but he's sick. And I mean, it was horrible. I had no idea that at that moment would be the beginning of 8 months of him out of work. Multiple surgeries. And he is not the man he was. I have a new Bob. I really do. But guess what went away? My place at Jellystone Park. My extra lot. Barely hung on to my house. Little by little, anything I could sell and get rid of, I had to. We had been living on 3 incomes. Teacher salary, after-school director, and my husband's job, and he coached, so technically 4. Well, his income, gone. I had to quit the after-school program because even though I did get him home on home health care with a PICC line, he had brain surgery. He was learning how to walk, talk, write. I mean, he couldn't take care of himself. So fortunately, my neighbor who works for the National Weather Service and my school, between the 2 of us, we came home and babysat Bob to help him get back to where he is today. And what is today? See, I know that the providing happened, and it is nothing what I expected. Because the beauty of it, it's so much better. So much better. We don't do what we used to do. We didn't used to shop Aldi's and get the clothes at the Walmart or have a son who loves to go to Goodwill with me. You know, he does. I created a monster. He's my boy. But, you know, my kids are different people. My husband's different. I'm different. We think about every penny we have and we don't spend it unless we absolutely have to, and we are careful. We're good stewards now. We were horrible stewards. I'll be honest. I totally get it because, you know, what are you going to do? You think it's never going to run out because we were in control. You can't serve 2 masters. You can't. I don't have the answer. This next message is a tough one because, you know, you do have to worry about money. I get that. Because again, I wouldn't have a house if I didn't have money, right? I wouldn't go to lunch today if I didn't have money. And when people lose a job, they have to find a job. But when is it that you are just thinking enough? And what is enough? How do we rethink money in our lives so that we are not being controlled by our quest for the almighty dollar? Because truthfully, this parable Jesus is talking about is really about that. He's going to lose his job. He likes this lifestyle. He's going to do what he can to maintain it no matter what it costs him. It's like the sell your soul to the devil to make sure you got those treasures here. I don't have that answer. You don't have that answer. But do you know where to go for the answer? It takes a lot of faith. A lot of faith. And, you know, was I the same person before I had to lose everything? And Jesus had to bring me to my knees? Life brought me to my knees? And I suddenly faced being a single mom? And I was a single mom for a long time. I don't know if you've ever had anyone with a brain injury, but it takes a while for them to be independent again. For you to have faith in them. To have a partner again. To get to that point, I wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for him. Because as I was on my knees, thinking, oh God, what now? And your little girl crawls in bed and says, Mommy, Daddy's not going to make it, is he? I don't know, sweetie. But don't you worry about that. Because God is loving us, and Daddy, I know, will be okay whether it's here or there, okay? You mean heaven, don't you? Yeah. I couldn't lie to my child. she had to have time to prepare that, you know what, maybe there will be life without a daddy. And we'll be okay. I was blessed. My prayers were answered. He got better, but it doesn't always work out, does it? Some of us go on without that person who was the most important thing in our life at that moment. But the good news is, faith is strongest in that adversity moment, And some of you this morning need to hear this because you're in that dark place right now. You're struggling and you're thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. Do your best to have faith in Him who knows you're going to make it. May end up being different than what you wanted. You may not have what you think you want. Let's face it, I'm never going to be a rich woman. He's never going to be a rich man. He's not a kept man. We're going to have to work, okay? We're not going to go see every place on the planet we want to go. We're not going to be able to buy everything we ever want. But even though I'm not the wealthiest person, and I never will be, I am rich. We can all be rich. You just have to readjust your heart and learn not to be addicted to the things of this world. Focus on the eternal. That is how you find joy. So this last message, as we get ready to close, I love this image. The internet's good for something once in a while. Not all the time. But you see how little the world looks to those loving hands? There is a God that loves me and a God that loves you, who cared enough to walk among us and tell stories more than 2,000 years ago to teach us today. I'm with you. I've got this. Trust in me. Don't get addicted to the money and the wealth and these things. Don't sell yourself short. Make real relationships based on the love for one another, not for what you're going to get from one another. Don't worry about the house you live in. Be excited about where you live. Be grateful. Be humble. And know you're loved. You will suffer. There will be financial difficulties. And you will never have enough in your bank account. You will never have enough in your 401k. You're never going to be happy if you're seeking after things that are going to make you happy only in this world. But I know in my heart, there's always enough in the 401k. There's always enough in that bank account. And it doesn't matter if you're sleeping on your neighbor's couch. You got a couch to lay your head. Because at the end of the day, this is just temporary. Life eternal is going to be something beyond I have words for. And that's where we're all headed when we follow Him. So learn from Him this morning. Lay it at the altar, man. Lay it at His feet. Let it go. Try to change your ways. Forgive yourself first. Confess to God what you need to be forgiven for. And every day is a new day. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not a guarantee, but you've got the present. And I love that saying. It's a present. Don't miss any of the joys that are here and now. Because you know what? It's free. Amen.